So in 2026, the FIFA World Cup, the biggest sporting event on Earth, is coming to North America. It's supposed to be this huge celebration of sports, of global unity. But here's the thing. In Mexico, it's on a direct collision course with one of the most powerful and, frankly, most violent criminal empires on the planet. This is the story of two giants, each worth billions, and what happens when the beautiful game runs headfirst into a very brutal reality. Okay, to really get a sense of what we're talking about, you have to start with this number. FIFA is expecting the 2026 World Cup to bring in a jaw-dropping $11 billion. That would make it the most profitable tournament in the history of the sport. This is the massive financial prize at the very center of everything.
Now hold that $11 billion figure in your head, because the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, well, they're estimated to pull in up to $2.5 billion, not in a year, every single month. Think about that. Over the few weeks the World Cup is running, they could make nearly as much money as FIFA itself. We are truly talking about two economic juggernauts on the same level.
And that brings us to the big question of this whole explainer. When you've got that much money, that much power, all packed into one place at the exact same time, what actually happens when these two completely different worlds are forced to share the stage?
So, first up, let's look at the official side of this whole thing, the absolutely enormous economic opportunity that the World Cup is supposed to be for Mexico. And what's crazy isn't just the $11 billion number itself, but the jump. That's a 56% increase from the last World Cup in Qatar. So you see, this isn't just another tournament. It is a financial super event. And you better believe Mexico is counting on getting its piece of the pie. And for Mexico specifically, the projections are huge. The government is hoping for $3 billion in direct economic impact, another billion plus from an expected 5.5 million tourists, and the creation of over 100,000 jobs. It's basically a massive economic stimulus plan, just wrapped up in a soccer tournament.
But, of course, you got to spend money to make money, right? Mexico has poured a massive $8.5 billion into infrastructure and getting the stadiums ready. So while the revenue looks great on paper, analysts think the actual take-home profit for each host city might be, well, a lot smaller, maybe between $90 and $480 million. The point is, the stakes are incredibly high because the upfront investment is just enormous.
Okay, now let's flip the coin. While Mexico's official economy is gearing up for this huge boom, its shadow economy, the one run by the cartels, is teetering on the brink of total chaos. And it's all for one very, very specific reason. First, you've got to understand that the CJNG isn't just some street gang. It's a full-blown illicit conglomerate. They've got their hands in everything: drugs, human smuggling, extortion, even stealing fuel. They operate with a scale and a level of complexity that you'd normally see in a Fortune 500 company. And this really shows you how they're structured, just like a real company. I mean, look at this estimated monthly payroll. A low-level hitman can make a couple grand a month, a specialized chemist, up to 20 grand, and a regional manager, what they call a plaza boss, can pull in $50,000 a month. This is a massive, well-oiled, and incredibly well-funded machine. And then, boom, that entire organization was just thrown into absolute turmoil. Because on February 22nd, 2026, its undisputed leader for years, El Mencho, died. And just like that, you have a massive power vacuum at the absolute worst possible time for Mexico.
So, the logical thing would be for them to call a truce, right? Lay low during the World Cup, keep the military off their backs. Well, check this out. According to intelligence analysis, the probability of that happening is just 15%. I mean, that is a shockingly low number.
And here's why that number is so low. The fight for control? It's already started. Rival groups like the Sinaloa Cartel are not just going to sit around and wait. They're going to exploit this weakness right now. And get this, when you look back at similar situations, in 91% of cases where a top kingpin is taken out, violence explodes by an average of 400% in the next 3 months. The incentive is to fight now, not later.
Okay, so if we know a violent power struggle is pretty much a sure thing, how in the world can we predict what it's going to look like? Well, the answer is data. Security analysts use something called game theory and run thousands of computer simulations to forecast the most likely outcomes. And after running 1,000 different scenarios, the model is pretty darn clear. The most likely outcome, with a 62% probability, is what's called balkanization. Basically, the cartel doesn't get a new leader. It shatters into smaller pieces that all go to war with each other. The next most likely thing, the rival Sinaloa cartel moves in to grab territory. A peaceful handover? Yeah, only a 9% chance of that.
And the model doesn't just tell us what will happen, it tells us when. Phase 1, which is happening right now, is a period of quiet, targeted violence as different factions test each other. But Phase 2, in May, that's when the model predicts open warfare breaks out, as everyone scrambles to grab power before the World Cup kicks off. Then in June, they shift to a hostage strategy, keeping the actual host cities quiet while the violence explodes everywhere else.
So, what's the bottom line from all this data? It's this. The model predicts with 95% confidence that the absolute peak of this violent conflict will happen in a very specific 2-week window, from May 20th to June 5th, ending less than a week before the first game. So let's really drill down on that critical window. What does this highly specific forecast actually mean on the ground for tourists, for security, for the tournament itself in those final, unbelievably tense weeks?
And what's really scary is that the analysis says the time right before that peak could be even worse. This quote really nails it. Factions are going to race to secure their turf before May 1st, because that's when the government's massive World Cup security plan, Operation Fair Play, starts locking everything down. They have to make their move before it's too late.
And this isn't just theory. We can actually map this risk onto real places. Take the popular tourist area of Riviera Nayarit. For late April, the model predicts that inside a luxury resort like Punta Mita, the risk will be low. But on the main highways you need to use to get there, like Highway 200, the risk of narco blockades is very high. The danger isn't in the resorts, it's in getting from point A to point B. Which leads to some very specific practical advice for anyone who might be in the region at that time. Number 1, stay off the highways. Number 2, keep a close eye on military movements as part of Operation Fair Play. And number 3, think about using boats or water taxis to get around, since they can bypass any roadblocks. And that's why this all matters. The data gives us a direct, actionable forecast.
Which really brings us back to one final, pretty sobering question. Mexico has spent billions, and the entire world is coming to celebrate. But when a global party of this size lands right in the middle of a violent corporate-level power struggle, it really makes you wonder who will ultimately end up paying the true price for the beautiful game.